Caracas, Venezuela, November 2, 2025, 1:27 p.m. local time, GMT-4. The sound of seagulls over the Caribbean coast vanished in an instant as the roar of jet engines tore through the clear blue sky. Within seconds, what was once an ordinary afternoon turned into chaos. The United States Air Force launched a full-scale airstrike on Venezuela's main military port in Puerto Cabello, marking one of the most audacious escalations between Washington and Caracas in over a decade. Eyewitnesses described a scene of terror as 3 F-22 Raptor jets appeared from the north, followed by 2 F-15E Strike Eagles flying low over the sea. At around 1:15 p.m., the first thunderous explosion echoed across the harbor. Massive fireballs erupted near the western docks, where Venezuela's naval fuel depots and supply ships were stationed. The sky turned orange. The blast was so loud it felt like the air itself was breaking apart, said a dock worker who managed to flee the scene. Within less than 10 minutes, a series of precision airstrikes struck key military targets across the harbor. According to early reports from the local newspaper El Nacional, 6 air-to-ground missiles were fired using laser-guided systems, followed by multiple rocket strikes launched from MQ-9 Reaper drones hovering at nearly 10,000 feet. The main targets were believed to be Venezuela's naval ammunition warehouses and logistical command centers. The scene at Puerto Cabello quickly descended into chaos. Civilians ran for cover, cars sped out of the city, and emergency sirens blared across the coastal region. Thick columns of black smoke rose into the afternoon sky, turning the bright sunlight into a dark haze. At approximately 1:42 p.m., a secondary explosion rocked the area, likely caused by ammunition igniting inside the main storage complex. By 3 p.m. local time, fires continued to rage uncontrollably. Firefighters and rescue units worked desperately amid scorching heat to extinguish the flames and pull victims from the wreckage. The La Esperanza Military Hospital reported more than 60 injured, most suffering from shrapnel wounds and blast trauma. Unconfirmed sources suggested that at least a dozen people may have been killed in the initial strikes. Venezuelan military officials immediately accused the United States of carrying out a premeditated act of aggression using stealth technology and electronic warfare. Radar stations near the coast were reportedly jammed minutes before the attack, suggesting that a cyber operation had been conducted to disable Venezuela's defense systems. At 2:10 p.m., President Nicolás Maduro convened an emergency meeting at the Miraflores Palace in Caracas. In a nationally televised address, he condemned the attack as an open act of war against the Venezuelan people and vowed a proportionate response to any violation of our sovereignty. Maduro ordered a full-scale military alert along the country's northern coastline and directed all air defense units to prepare for possible further incursions. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Department of Defense declined to make an official statement. However, a senior Pentagon official speaking anonymously to Reuters said that the operation was a preventive defensive strike aimed at halting the transfer of illegal weapons believed to threaten U.S. assets in the Caribbean. The source emphasized that no American ground troops were involved and described the mission as limited and precise. Western intelligence agencies later reported that satellite surveillance had tracked unusual activity at Puerto Cabello for weeks. High-resolution imagery revealed increased shipments of large containers believed to contain heavy weapons and Russian-made medium-range missiles. The United States reportedly viewed the buildup as a direct threat to regional stability, particularly to U.S. naval patrols operating in international waters nearby. The international reaction was swift and divided. Russia and China, Venezuela's closest allies, immediately issued strong condemnations. The Russian Foreign Ministry labeled the strike a blatant violation of international law, while China called on all parties to exercise restraint and avoid actions that could ignite a regional conflict. In contrast, some member states of the Organization of American States, including Colombia and Panama, publicly supported Washington's actions, claiming that Venezuela had long been a hub for arms trafficking and cartel operations. Tensions escalated further as the Boliviana Navy of Venezuela deployed warships and coastal defense missiles along its northern waters. Radar systems at Palo Negro Air Base reportedly detected unidentified aircraft circling over the Caribbean late in the afternoon. A Venezuelan military spokesman claimed that their forces had shot down a U.S. reconnaissance drone, though the Pentagon has yet to comment on the allegation. At the same time, global oil markets began to react sharply. Brent crude prices spiked more than 3% within an hour after news of the attack broke, as traders feared potential disruptions to global supply chains. Analysts warned that the airstrike on one of Venezuela's key export ports could have far-reaching consequences for international energy stability. By 5 p.m., the situation in Puerto Cabello remained volatile. Thick plumes of smoke continued to drift over the coastline as Venezuelan helicopters circled the area. Main roads leading to the port were sealed off by armed forces, and journalists were barred from approaching the site. Locals gathered at a distance, waving national flags and chanting slogans against what they called terror from the sky. In Washington, the White House finally broke its silence at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. During a brief press conference, the spokesperson affirmed that the United States had acted to maintain peace and regional stability, insisting that all military actions were proportionate and based on verified intelligence. However, the statement stopped short of naming the exact target, fueling speculation across global media outlets. Later that evening, the United Nations Security Council called an emergency session to address the escalating crisis. Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed deep concern and urged both nations to cease hostilities immediately. He warned that any further confrontation between the United States and Venezuela could lead to severe humanitarian consequences across South America. Journalists who managed to reach the outer perimeter of Puerto Cabello described scenes of utter devastation. Hundreds of burning containers littered the docks. Half-sunken supply ships smoldered in the harbor, and the port's administrative buildings were reduced to rubble. The acrid smell of fuel and gunpowder filled the air. "This is no longer a harbor, it's a battlefield," said a freelance photographer at the scene. As night fell, the Venezuelan government officially declared a national state of emergency. All military airports were shut down, and air defense systems were placed on high alert. National television channels played patriotic songs interspersed with messages from the government calling for unity. Across Caracas, thousands of citizens took to the streets, waving banners that read, "Venezuela will never surrender." In the United States, public reaction was divided. Some praised the move as a decisive show of strength against a hostile regime, while others criticized it as a reckless unilateral action that could drag America into another prolonged conflict. Political analysts noted that the decision to launch the airstrike in broad daylight, rather than at night, was a symbolic statement of dominance, demonstrating that the U.S. held full air superiority over the Caribbean region. By midnight local time, fires at the port had finally begun to subside, but the damage was catastrophic. Dozens of vessels were destroyed, thousands of tons of fuel were lost, and Venezuela's central supply chain had been crippled. The government estimated the total losses to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Meanwhile, surveillance drones, believed to be American, were still detected flying over international waters near the area. Observers warned that this attack could mark a turning point in U.S.-Venezuela relations. For some, it was a necessary strike against a corrupt and militarized regime. For others, it was a dangerous provocation that risked igniting a new conflict in a region already plagued by political instability. As the sun set over the Caribbean horizon, Puerto Cabello remained shrouded in smoke and silence. The faint glow of fires reflected off the water, a grim reminder of the destruction that unfolded beneath the midday sun. On the beach, residents stood quietly, watching the distant warships on the horizon, the same sea that only hours earlier had witnessed one of the most dramatic air assaults in South America's recent history. For the world, this event served as a chilling reminder that global tensions can erupt at any moment, even under the clearest skies. And for Venezuela, November 2nd, 2025, will be remembered as the day when foreign shadows crossed its skies, bringing with them the roar of engines and the echo of war.